Alex Carter sat at his workstation, staring intently at the glowing screen in front of him. The room was dimly lit, save for the soft blue light emanating from multiple monitors scattered across the desk. He leaned forward slightly, his fingers hovering over the keyboard as he scrolled through lines of data that most people would find incomprehensible. But Alex wasn't like most people. To him, these numbers and graphs told a story, one that had been hidden for centuries. He worked on Arendor, one of humanity's oldest colonies, located many light years away from Earth. It was a place where humans had learned to adapt and thrive despite the challenges of living on an alien planet. The sky here shimmered with two suns instead of one, casting long shadows during the day, and bathing everything in hues of orange and gold at sunset. Life on Arendor was peaceful, but not without its reminders of what humanity had left behind. For years, Alex had studied gravitational anomalies, tiny fluctuations in gravity that seemed out of place or unexplained. Most of his colleagues dismissed them as natural occurrences, nothing more than background noise in the vastness of space. But something about this particular set of readings caught Alex's attention. They came from probes orbiting Earth, a planet humanity hadn't stepped foot on in over 200 years. Earth's gravity had always been a problem. Back when the first settlers fled their homeworld, it wasn't just because resources were dwindling or pollution had rendered parts of the planet uninhabitable. It was the weight, the literal crushing force of Earth's gravity that made life unbearable. Over time, scientists discovered that Earth's core had undergone changes no one could fully explain. Its magnetic field weakened, and its gravitational pull grew stronger. For creatures evolved to live under such conditions, survival became impossible. Plants couldn't grow tall enough to reach sunlight. Animals collapsed under their own mass, and even humans struggled to move without assistance. No species survived Earth's gravity, except humans, who escaped into the stars. But now, staring at the data before him, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. There were faint signals coming from Earth's surface, not random bursts of energy or static interference, but patterns that suggested intelligence. Someone, or something, was alive down there. Impossible, Alex muttered under his breath, rubbing his temples. He replayed the data several times, adjusting filters and recalibrating algorithms to rule out errors. Yet every time, the same conclusion stared back at him. Whatever was sending those signals, it wasn't natural. Curiosity gnawed at him. Who else could be alive on Earth? Had some group of humans stayed behind against all odds? Or was it something else entirely? Something alien? Determined to get answers, Alex decided to share his findings with Dr. Laura Bennett, one of the leading experts in xenobiology stationed on Arendor. Laura spent her days studying ancient life forms, piecing together fragments of history from fossils and genetic samples brought back by explorers. She was known for her sharp mind and relentless pursuit of truth, qualities Alex admired. The next morning, Alex made his way to Laura's lab. The building stood near the edge of the colony, surrounded by lush vegetation native to Arendor. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, filled with the hum of equipment and the occasional clink of glassware. Laura was hunched over a microscope. When Alex entered, her dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail. "Got a minute?" Alex asked, holding up the tablet containing his data. Laura glanced up, pushing her glasses higher onto the bridge of her nose. "Sure. What's got you so worked up?" Alex hesitated for a moment, then handed her the tablet. "Take a look at this." As Laura reviewed the information, her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. "Are you serious? This can't be right." "I thought so too," Alex admitted, "but I've double-checked everything. These signals are real, Laura, and they're coming from Earth." Laura sat back in her chair, tapping her pen against the desk. "If this is true..." Her voice trailed off as she considered the implications. "It means we weren't the only ones who adapted. Somehow something survived." "But how?" Alex pressed. "We know Earth's gravity should have wiped out any chance of life evolving further. So what are we dealing with here? Mutations, technology, aliens?" Laura shook her head. I don't know. But if there's even a sliver of possibility that intelligent life exists on Earth, we need to investigate. Over the next few days, Alex and Laura pored over every scrap of historical data they could find about Earth's final days. They uncovered old records detailing desperate attempts to modify human DNA to withstand the planet's changing environment. Some experiments focused on enhancing physical strength, while others explored ways to merge biology with machinery. None of them succeeded, not completely anyway. One document stood out among the rest. A classified report from a secret research facility buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Dubbed Project Titan, the initiative aimed to create life forms capable of surviving and thriving in Earth's extreme conditions. Funding had dried up shortly after humanity fled the planet, leaving the project abandoned. "This has to be connected," Laura said, pointing to the report. "Whatever we're seeing now might be a result of Project Titan. But why would anyone keep experimenting after everyone left?" Alex wondered aloud. "And why didn't they tell us about it?" Laura frowned. "Maybe they did try to warn us. Or maybe they failed and covered it up. Either way, we won't know unless we go back." Going back to Earth wasn't a decision to take lightly. For decades, the idea of returning to the homeworld had been dismissed as both impractical and dangerous. Few ships were equipped to handle Earth's gravity, and fewer still had crews willing to risk their lives for a mission with uncertain outcomes. Still, Alex and Laura knew they couldn't ignore what they'd found. With Laura's help, Alex drafted a proposal outlining their findings and requesting permission to launch an expedition. They presented it to Commander Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned officer in charge of planetary defense for the colony. Ryan was skeptical at first, questioning whether the potential rewards outweighed the risks. But as he listened to their arguments, his expression softened. "If what you're saying is true," Ryan said finally, "then this could change everything we know about our past and our future." After much deliberation, Ryan agreed to assemble a small team for the mission. He handpicked individuals based on their skills and experience, ensuring each member brought something unique to the table. In addition to Alex and Laura, the crew included Mia Rodriguez, a skilled pilot with nerves of steel, Jake Thompson, a medic trained to handle emergencies in hostile environments, and Sam Collins, a security officer with a reputation for being fiercely protective. As preparations began, excitement mingled with apprehension among the team. Each person carried their own reasons for joining the expedition. Mia hoped to uncover clues about her ancestors, who had been part of the first wave of colonists to leave Earth. Jake saw it as an opportunity to test his abilities in uncharted territory, and Sam simply wanted to protect his friends, knowing full well the dangers they might face. Meanwhile, Alex continued analyzing the signals, trying to pinpoint their exact location on Earth. Every new discovery fueled his determination to solve the mystery. Whatever awaited them on Earth, he knew it would challenge everything they thought they understood about survival, evolution, and the resilience of life itself. Days turned into weeks as the ship, christened Aurora, underwent final checks and modifications. Supplies were loaded, systems tested, and contingency plans reviewed. The countdown to departure loomed large, filling the air with a mix of anticipation and unease. On the eve of their journey, Alex stood outside the colony, gazing up at the twin suns setting in the distance. His mind raced with questions. Would they find answers on Earth? Or would they stumble upon something far greater and far more terrifying than they could imagine? Only time would tell. The morning of the mission's launch arrived with a crispness in the air that felt almost symbolic. The colony buzzed with quiet anticipation as the crew of the Aurora gathered at the docking bay. Alex Carter stood near the ship, his eyes scanning the sleek vessel that would carry them back to Earth. It was smaller than most interstellar ships, but built for speed and durability. Its surface gleamed under the twin suns of Arendor, reflecting a mix of hope and uncertainty. Laura Bennett joined him moments later, clutching a datapad filled with last-minute research notes. She glanced at Alex, her expression unreadable. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice calm but tinged with nervous energy. "As ready as I'll ever be," Alex replied with a faint smile. He adjusted the strap of his bag, feeling the weight of everything they were leaving behind, and everything they might find waiting for them. Mia Rodriguez approached next, her boots clicking against the metal floor of the docking bay. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight braid, and her sharp eyes betrayed no fear. "Let's not keep the universe waiting," she said, her tone light but carrying an edge of determination. As the pilot, Mia had spent countless hours running simulations and testing the ship's systems. She knew every inch of the Aurora, like the back of her hand. Jake Thompson and Sam Collins rounded out the group. Jake carried a medical kit slung over his shoulder, its bulk a reminder of the dangers they might face. Sam, on the other hand, moved with the deliberate confidence of someone who had trained for combat his entire life. His hand rested casually on the holster of his weapon, though his eyes darted around the room, always alert. Commander Ryan Mitchell stood nearby, overseeing final preparations. He gave the team one last briefing before departure. "This mission isn't just about finding answers," he said, his deep voice cutting through the hum of activity in the bay. "It's about understanding where we came from, and maybe figuring out where we're going. Stay focused, stay safe, and trust each other." With those words, the crew boarded the Aurora. The interior of the ship was compact but efficient, designed to maximize space without sacrificing comfort. Each member settled into their designated stations, performing final checks as the countdown began. Outside, the colony grew smaller and smaller through the viewport until it disappeared entirely, replaced by the vast emptiness of space. For weeks, the journey passed uneventfully. The crew fell into a routine, their days divided between work, meals, and brief periods of rest. Conversations during downtime revealed glimpses of their personalities and motivations. Mia often spoke of her ancestors, describing how they had been among the first settlers to leave Earth. "They didn't talk much about why they left," she admitted one evening. "Just that it was too hard to stay. I guess I want to know what made it so impossible." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "I've always wondered how different things could have been if humanity had found another way. Maybe this trip will give us some closure, or at least a better understanding." Sam remained quieter than the others, though his presence was always felt. When he did speak, it was usually to offer practical advice or share stories from his time as a soldier. "You never really know what you're walking into," he said once, his voice low. "Best thing you can do is prepare for the worst and hope for the best." Alex and Laura spent most of their time reviewing data and refining their theories about Earth's mysterious signals. They worked side by side in the ship's small lab, poring over holographic projections and debating possibilities late into the night. Slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. "It's not just random noise," Laura explained one day, pointing to a series of waveforms displayed on a screen. "These patterns repeat in cycles, almost like a language. Whatever's creating them knows exactly what it's doing. But what could survive Earth's gravity long enough to develop intelligence?" Alex countered, frowning. "Even humans couldn't handle it after a while. We had to leave." Laura hesitated before responding. "Maybe it's not entirely natural. Remember Project Titan? If those experiments succeeded, even partially, they could have created something new, something that combined biology and technology to adapt." Alex mulled over her words, his mind racing with possibilities. "So we're talking about hybrids? Part machine, part organism?" "Exactly," Laura confirmed. "And if they've been evolving for centuries, who knows what they're capable of now?" As the Aurora neared Earth, tension aboard the ship grew palpable. The planet loomed, larger in the viewport each day, its blue-green surface obscured by swirling clouds. Despite its beauty, there was something foreboding about it, a sense of heaviness that seemed to press down even from millions of miles away. Finally, the moment came for the crew to enter Earth's atmosphere. Mia took her seat at the controls, her hand steady as she guided the ship toward the planet's surface. "Brace yourselves," she warned, her voice firm but calm. "Gravity's going to hit hard." She wasn't wrong, As the aurora descended, the pull of Earth's gravity became undeniable. Even with advanced exosuits designed to counteract the strain, the crew felt the oppressive weight pressing down on them. Breathing grew harder, movement slower. It was as if the planet itself resisted their return. Through the viewport, Earth looked both familiar and alien. Vast stretches of jungle sprawled across the land, reclaiming cities and towns swallowed by time. Towering ruins jutted out of the dense foliage like broken teeth, remnants of a civilization long gone. The air shimmered with heat, and strange sounds echoed faintly in the distance. Chirps, growls, and rustling leaves. "We're here," Mia announced as the ship touched down in a clearing surrounded by ancient buildings. Her voice carried a mixture of awe and unease. The team suited up, donning their reinforced exosuits before stepping outside. The air smelled damp and earthy, thick with humidity. Alex took a cautious step forward, immediately feeling the strain on his body despite the suit's assistance. "This is insane," he muttered, adjusting his helmet. "How did anyone live like this?" Laura scanned the area, her eyes wide with curiosity. Imagine trying to farm, build, or even walk without help. It's no wonder humanity left. Their first task was to locate the source of the signals. Using portable scanners, they followed faint traces of electromagnetic activity deeper into the ruins. The ground beneath their feet cracked and crumbled with age, forcing them to move carefully. Vines snaked across walls covered in faded graffiti, and piles of rubble blocked narrow streets. As they ventured further, the environment grew more hostile. Giant trees loomed overhead, their roots tearing apart concrete foundations. Strange insects buzzed around them, some large enough to startle even Sam. Occasionally they heard distant roars that sent shivers down their spines. "This place feels alive," Jake remarked, glancing nervously at the shadows. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Sam replied grimly, gripping his weapon tighter. "Stay sharp." Despite the eerie atmosphere, the team pressed on. After hours of searching, they stumbled upon something extraordinary, a massive structure buried beneath layers of vegetation. Its metallic surface gleamed dully in the dim light, untouched by corrosion or decay. A faint hum emanated from within, resonating through the air. "What is this?" Alex whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound. Laura examined the entrance, brushing aside moss and dirt to reveal intricate carvings etched into the metal. "It looks artificial," she said, her tone filled with wonder. "But unlike anything I've seen before." The door slid open as they approached, revealing a dark corridor leading deeper inside. Lights flickered to life automatically, casting an eerie glow along the walls. Holographic displays lined the passageways, showing images of experiments and genetic modifications. Fragments of text scrolled across screens detailing the rise and fall of Project Titan. "This must be it," Alex said, his heart pounding. "The facility where they conducted their experiments." Laura nodded, her expression somber. "If we're lucky, we'll find records explaining what happened here. And maybe, just maybe, we'll figure out what's still alive on Earth." But as they ventured deeper into the labyrinthine complex, they couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. Shadows moved just beyond the edges of their vision, and the hum grew louder, almost rhythmic. Whatever they were about to discover, they knew it wouldn't be simple or safe. The weight of Earth's gravity bore down on them, but it was nothing compared to the weight of the secrets they were about to uncover. The crew of the Aurora moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors of the underground facility, their footsteps echoing faintly against the metallic walls. The air inside was cool and stale, carrying a faint metallic tang that made Jake wrinkle his nose. Despite the advanced exosuits they wore, the oppressive weight of Earth's gravity still pressed down on them, making every step feel like an effort. Alex adjusted the scanner in his hand, its soft beeping guiding them deeper into the labyrinthine structure. Laura walked beside him, her eyes darting between the holographic displays mounted on the walls and the data pad she carried. Each display showed fragments of information, charts, diagrams, and videos depicting strange experiments. In one clip, Scientists stood around a glass chamber containing a writhing mass of flesh and machinery. Its form shifted constantly, as if it couldn't decide whether to be organic or mechanical. Laura froze for a moment, watching the footage intently. "This is it," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is what Project Titan was working on." "What exactly are we looking at?" Sam asked from behind her, his weapon raised and ready. His sharp gaze scanned the shadows, searching for any sign of movement. "It looks like they were trying to merge biology with technology," Laura explained, pointing to the screen. "They wanted to create life forms that could survive Earth's gravity by combining human DNA with something else, something artificial." "Did they succeed?" Mia asked, her tone skeptical but curious. She had taken up position near the entrance of the corridor, keeping watch in case they needed a quick escape. "I don't know yet," Laura admitted, "but whatever they created must have been powerful enough to adapt to this environment, and maybe even evolve after humanity left." As they continued forward, the hum they'd noticed earlier grew louder, resonating through the walls and floor. It wasn't just noise. It was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The sound sent chills down Alex's spine, and he exchanged uneasy glances with Jake. "Do you think that's coming from whatever's alive down here?" Jake asked quietly, gripping his medical kit tightly. "It has to be," Alex replied, swallowing hard. "Whatever survived Earth's gravity must be connected to this place." The group reached a large chamber at the end of the corridor. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow and dominated by rows of towering machines that pulsed with faint blue light. At the center of the chamber stood a massive cylindrical tank filled with a swirling, gelatinous substance. Suspended within the tank was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. It was humanoid in shape but grotesquely distorted. Its skin, or what passed for skin, was translucent, revealing layers of muscle and bone fused seamlessly with metal components. Tubes and wires extended from its body, connecting it to the surrounding machinery. Its head tilted slightly, as if it were aware of their presence, though its eyes remained closed. "What is that?" Mia breathed, taking a hesitant step closer. "That's what survived," Laura said softly, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. "That's what adapted to Earth's gravity." Sam tightened his grip on his weapon, his jaw clenched. "And now it knows we're here." Before anyone could respond, the lights in the chamber flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for a split second. When they returned, the creature in the tank had opened its eyes. They glowed with an unnatural light, locking onto the crew with an intensity that made Alex's stomach churn. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red warning lights flashing along the walls. The hum grew deafening, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Panels on the walls slid open, revealing hidden compartments filled with smaller versions of the creature in the tank. These hybrids were less developed than the ones suspended before them, but no less terrifying. Their movements were jerky and erratic as they emerged, their glowing eyes scanning the room. "We need to get out of here now," Ryan shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Mia turned to lead the way back toward the exit, but the creatures blocked their path. They moved unnaturally fast, their limbs bending in ways that defied logic. One lunged at Sam, who fired his weapon instinctively. The shot struck the hybrid in the chest, causing it to stagger but not fall. Instead, it let out a high-pitched screech that echoed through the chamber. "They're not stopping," Jake yelled, pulling out a tranquilizer gun from his kit. He aimed at another hybrid charging toward them, hitting it squarely in the neck. The creature collapsed instantly, its body twitching as the sedative took effect. "Keep moving," Ryan ordered, ushering the team toward a narrow doorway on the far side of the chamber. Laura hesitated, torn between leaving and gathering more data. Alex grabbed her arm gently but firmly, pulling her along. "There's no time," he urged, his voice urgent. "We can come back later, if we survive this." The crew sprinted through the doorway, slamming it shut behind them. Sam used a control panel to seal it electronically, buying them precious seconds. On the other side, they found themselves in another corridor, this one narrower and darker than the last. The hum of the hybrid's approach grew louder, reverberating through the walls. "This way," Mia called, leading them toward a staircase that spiraled upward. Climbing stairs under Earth's gravity proved nearly impossible, but the exosuits provided just enough assistance to keep them moving. Every step felt like lifting weights, and sweat poured down their faces despite the cooling systems in their suits. At the top of the stairs, they emerged into a smaller room filled with crates and equipment. A single door led outside, offering a glimpse of daylight beyond. But standing between them and freedom was another group of hybrids, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. "We can't fight all of them," Jake said, panting heavily. "There's too many." Ryan nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to distract them." Without hesitation, Sam stepped forward, firing his weapon at the nearest hybrid. The rest of the creatures turned their attention to him, giving the others a chance to slip past. "Go!" he shouted over his shoulder. "I'll hold them off." "No!" Laura cried, reaching out to stop him. But Ryan grabbed her arm, pulling her away. "He knows what he's doing," Ryan said firmly, though his voice betrayed his regret. "Let's move!" Reluctantly, the team obeyed, sprinting toward the door while Sam continued firing. Just as they reached the threshold, an explosion rocked the facility, sending shockwaves through the ground. The force knocked them off their feet, and Alex turned in time to see flames licking at the edges of the doorway. "Sam!" Mia screamed, tears streaming down her face as she tried to run back inside. Ryan caught her, holding her tightly despite her struggles. "He knew the risks," Ryan said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "He gave us our chance. We can't waste it." With no other choice, the remaining crew members stumbled outside, gasping for breath as they collapsed onto the damp earth. Behind them, smoke billowed from the facility, signaling its destruction. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the distant cries of the hybrids trapped within. Alex looked around at his teammates, their faces pale and streaked with dirt. Laura sat hunched over, clutching her datapad to her chest. Jake tended to a cut on Mia's arm, his hands trembling slightly. Ryan stood apart from the group, staring at the burning ruins with a mixture of guilt and resolve. "We made it," Alex said finally, his voice hoarse. "But at what cost?" No one answered. The weight of what they had witnessed, and what they had lost, hung heavy in the air. They had uncovered the truth about Earth's survivors, but it came at a price none of them were prepared to pay. As they limped back toward the Aurora, Alex couldn't shake the image of the creature in the tank. Whatever it wasn't done with them. And deep down, he knew their journey was far from over. The crew of the Aurora trudged through the dense jungle, their bodies aching from the relentless pull of Earth's gravity. Each step felt like dragging weights through mud, and even with the assistance of their exosuits, exhaustion was setting. And the oppressive heat and humidity didn't help either, clinging to them like a second skin. Alex wiped sweat from his brow, his mind racing with thoughts of what they had just escaped, and what might still be following them. Behind them, the facility they had fled continued to burn, sending thick plumes of black smoke into the sky. The sight was both a relief and a reminder of the danger they faced. Sam's sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone, especially Mia, who walked silently at the back of the group. Her usual confidence was replaced by a quiet sadness, her eyes fixed on the ground as if searching for answers that weren't there. Laura led the way, consulting her datapad frequently. She had managed to download some files before the explosion, but much of the information was fragmented and incomplete. "There has to be more," she muttered under her breath, scrolling through lines of corrupted text. "We can't leave without understanding what happened here." "We almost didn't leave at all," Ryan reminded her sharply, glancing over his shoulder. His tone softened when he saw the pain in her expression. "I know how important this is, Laura, but we're not doing anyone any good if we don't make it back alive." Alex nodded in agreement, though his thoughts were elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about the hybrids, their unnatural movements, their glowing eyes, the way they seemed to move with purpose rather than instinct. They weren't just animals, they were intelligent, and intelligence meant intent. "Do you think they'll come after us?" he asked aloud, voicing the question that had been gnawing at him since they left the facility. "Probably, Jake replied grimly, adjusting the strap of his medical kit. If those things are tied to the facility, they'll see us as a threat. And threats usually get eliminated. Mia spoke up for the first time in hours, her voice tight with emotion. Sam knew that. He stayed behind so we could get away. She paused, swallowing hard. We owe it to him to survive this. The others fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Despite the tension, they pressed onward, pushing through tangled vines and uneven terrain. The jungle seemed alive around them, its sounds growing louder and more chaotic the farther they went. Birds screeched overhead, their calls sharp and piercing. Insects buzzed incessantly, some large enough to startle even Ryan. Occasionally, the distant roar of something far bigger echoed through the trees, sending shivers down their spines. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing where the ruins of an old city rose above the vegetation. Crumbling buildings stood like skeletal remains, their walls covered in moss and ivy. Broken windows stared blankly at the sky, and rusted metal beams jutted out at odd angles. It was a haunting sight, a ghost town frozen in time. This must have been a major settlement once, Laura said, her voice tinged with awe. She ran her fingers along the cracked surface of a crumbling wall, brushing away layers of dirt to reveal faded lettering. Look, this used to be part of a government district. Ryan scanned the area, his hand resting on his weapon. We should find shelter here for the night. Moving in the dark would be suicide. No one argued. They chose a relatively intact building near the edge of the clearing, its roof still mostly intact despite the decay. Inside, the floor was littered with debris, chunks of concrete, twisted rebar, and shards of glass. But it offered protection from the elements and whatever else might lurk outside. As dusk settled over the jungle, the temperature dropped sharply, bringing a chill that seeped through their suits. Jake set up a small portable heater while Mia and Alex worked together to clear a space for them to rest. Laura sat cross-legged on the floor, poring over the data she had salvaged. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she pieced together fragments of information. "What are you finding?" Alex asked, sitting beside her. He handed her a ration bar, which she accepted absently. "It's complicated," she admitted, chewing slowly. "Some of these files talk about early successes with Project Titan. They were able to create hybrid organisms that could withstand Earth's gravity, but the results were unstable. A lot of test subjects died or went rogue." "Rogue?" Ryan echoed, leaning closer. "You mean they turned violent?" Laura nodded. "Yes. Some of the hybrids developed aggressive tendencies, attacking researchers and destroying equipment. That's why the project was shut down, or at least that's what the records say. But clearly someone kept working on it," Alex pointed out. "Those hybrids back at the facility weren't accidents. Someone designed them to evolve." "Exactly," Laura agreed. "Whoever took over after humanity left must have refined the process. These creatures are advanced, maybe even sentient." The implications hung heavy in the air. If the hybrids were intelligent, then humanity wasn't just dealing with a biological anomaly. They were facing a new form of life, one born from human experimentation but shaped by centuries of isolation and adaptation. As night fell, the jungle came alive with sound. The chirping of insects grew louder, blending with the occasional hoot of nocturnal birds. Shadows danced across the walls of their makeshift shelter, cast by flickering torches they had lit for light. Despite the warmth of the flames, the mood remained somber. Jake tended to minor injuries sustained during their escape, cleaning cuts and applying bandages with practiced efficiency. When he finished, he sat quietly, staring into the fire. "Do you think we'll ever go back home?" he asked suddenly, breaking the silence. Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "That depends on whether we can figure out what's really going on here. If those hybrids are as dangerous as they seem, we can't just walk away." "And if we do go back," Alex added, "what do we tell people? That Earth is crawling with monsters we created?" "No one will believe us," Mia said bitterly. "They'll call us crazy or say we made it up. Or worse, they'll send more ships to investigate. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Ryan said firmly. For now, our priority is survival. We focus on getting off this planet in one piece. The conversation trailed off as fatigue began to take its toll. One by one, the crew members curled up on the floor, using emergency blankets to ward off the cold. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by strange noises from outside and vivid dreams of glowing eyes and metallic limbs. Hours later, Alex woke with a start, his heart pounding. Something had woken him, a sound unlike anything he'd heard before. It was faint but unmistakable, the rhythmic hum they had encountered in the facility. He sat up slowly, straining to listen. The noise grew louder, accompanied by the soft crunch of footsteps moving through the underbrush. "Everyone, wake up," he whispered urgently, shaking Jake's shoulder. The others stirred groggily, reaching for their weapons as realization dawned. "They're here," Ryan said grimly, moving to the entrance of the shelter. Through the cracks in the wall, they could see shadows moving in the moonlight. Shapes that were too large and too deliberate to belong to ordinary animals. "How many?" Sam asked, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Too many," Ryan replied, gripping his weapon tightly. "Stay low and stay quiet. We need to wait for daylight." The hybrids circled the building, their glowing eyes scanning the darkness. Every so often one would pause, tilting its head as if listening. The crew held their breath, praying the creatures wouldn't detect them. Minutes stretched into hours, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, just as dawn began to break, the hybrids retreated into the jungle, disappearing as quickly as they had come. The crew exhaled in unison, their bodies trembling with relief. "That was too close," Jake muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What now?" Ryan stood, his expression resolute. "Now we move. Whatever's driving those things knows. We're here. We can't stay in one place for long." With heavy hearts and weary bodies, the crew packed up their supplies and prepared to leave. As they stepped outside, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the ruins. For a brief moment, Earth looked almost peaceful, a stark contrast to the horrors they had witnessed. But peace was an illusion. Somewhere out there, the hybrids waited, watching. And deep within the jungle, the source of the hum pulsed steadily, calling to them like a heartbeat. "We'll get through this," Alex said softly, more to himself than anyone else. "We have to." One foot in front of the other, they moved forward, driven by determination and the hope of survival. Earth's gravity bore down on them, but their resolve carried them onward. Whatever secrets the planet held, they were determined to uncover, even if it cost them everything. The crew of the Aurora moved cautiously through the ruins, their footsteps crunching softly against the debris-strewn ground. The morning sun filtered weakly through the thick canopy above, casting dappled light across the crumbling buildings. Despite the brightness, the air felt heavy, not just from Earth's gravity but also from the tension that lingered after their close encounter with the hybrids. None of them spoke as they navigated the maze of shattered walls and twisted metal, their eyes scanning every shadow for signs of movement. Laura led the way, her datapad clutched tightly in one hand. She had spent most of the night piecing together fragments of information salvaged from the facility, and though much of it was still unclear, she had uncovered something significant: a map. It wasn't detailed or complete, but it showed the locations of several underground structures connected to Project Titan. One of these structures was marked with a red dot, a symbol Laura suspected indicated the central hub of the operation. "This is where we need to go," she said finally, stopping to point at the screen. Her voice was quiet but firm, drawing the others' attention. "If there are more answers about those hybrids, they'll be here." Ryan studied the map carefully, his brow furrowed. "How far is it?" "About 10 kilometers northeast," Laura replied. "But the terrain looks rough. We'll have to cross more jungle and climb over some collapsed bridges." Alex sighed, shifting the weight of his pack. "Great. Just what we needed, more hiking." Mia shot him a small smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "At least we know where we're going now. That's better than wandering around blind." "Let's move," Ryan ordered, gesturing for the group to follow. We don't want to give those hybrids another chance to catch up. The journey proved even harder than Laura had anticipated. The jungle seemed determined to slow them down, its vines tangling around their legs and roots tripping them at every step. Towering trees blocked out much of the sunlight, leaving the forest floor dim and damp. Strange creatures skittered through the underbrush, their movements quick and unpredictable. Once, a large bird-like animal burst from the foliage, startling everyone and nearly causing Jake to drop his medical kit. As they pushed forward, Alex found himself glancing over his shoulder constantly. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig made his heart race. "Do you think they're following us?" he asked quietly, his voice barely audible over the sounds of the jungle. "They might be," Ryan admitted, keeping his weapon ready. "But they haven't attacked yet. Maybe they're waiting for the right moment." "That's comforting," Jake muttered sarcastically, adjusting the strap of his kit. His face was pale and dark circles lined his eyes. He hadn't slept well since Sam's sacrifice, and it was starting to show. After hours of trudging through the dense vegetation, they reached the edge of a wide ravine. A river flowed far below, its waters churning violently as they carved through the rocky landscape. What remained of an old bridge spanned the gap, its metal framework rusted and partially collapsed. Crossing it would be dangerous, but turning back wasn't an option. "We'll have to take it slow," Mia said, examining the structure carefully. "One person at a time. If anyone falls, the rest of us won't be able to help." Ryan nodded, stepping forward. "I'll go first. Keep your distance in case it gives way." He moved slowly, testing each step before putting his full weight on the unstable planks. The creak of metal echoed ominously, making the others hold their breath. When he reached the other side safely, he signaled for Mia to follow. She crossed next, her movement steady despite the obvious danger. Then came Laura, her arms spread wide for balance, followed by Jake, who clung to the railing like his life depended on it, which in truth, it did. When it was Alex's turn, he hesitated, staring at the yawning chasm below. Heights had never been his strong suit, and the thought of falling sent a wave of nausea through him. "You've got this," Ryan called from the other side, his tone encouraging. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped onto the bridge, forcing himself to focus on the path ahead rather than the drop beneath him. Halfway across, disaster struck. One of the planks gave way under his foot, sending splinters flying into the air. Alex stumbled, grabbing onto the railing just in time to stop himself from falling. His heart hammered in his chest as he pulled himself upright, his hands trembling. "Keep moving," Mia urged, her voice filled with urgency. "Don't look down." Gritting his teeth, Alex forced himself to keep going until he reached solid ground. He collapsed onto his knees, shaking uncontrollably as relief washed over him. "That was too close," he gasped, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You're okay?" Laura assured him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We're all okay, let's keep moving." On the other side of the ravine, the terrain became steeper and rockier. Thick vines snaked across the cliffs, providing makeshift handholds as they climbed higher. The exertion left them drenched in sweat and gasping for air, their exosuits struggling to compensate for the strain of Earth's gravity. By the time they reached the top, exhaustion had set in fully, and they paused briefly to catch their breath. It was then that they saw it. A massive dome-shaped structure rising from the jungle below. Its surface gleamed faintly in the sunlight, untouched by the decay that had claimed everything else around it. This was the location marked on Laura's map, the central hub of Project Titan. "There it is," Alex said, pointing toward the dome. His voice carried a mixture of awe and dread. "It doesn't look like anyone's home," Jake remarked, squinting at the building. "No guards, no hybrids, nothing." "That's what worries me," Ryan said grimly. "Why would they leave something this important unguarded?" As they descended toward the structure, the jungle grew quieter, almost unnaturally so. Birds stopped chirping, insects ceased buzzing, and even the wind seemed to die down. The silence pressed in on them, amplifying the sound of their own breathing. When they reached the entrance, they found it sealed shut, its metallic door bearing no visible controls or handles. "How do we get in?" Mia asked, running her fingers along the smooth surface. Laura consulted her datapad again, scrolling through lines of corrupted text. "There's a code here. Maybe it's the key." She typed a sequence of numbers into the panel beside the door, holding her breath as she pressed the final digit. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the door slid open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. The team exchanged uneasy glances before stepping inside, their weapons raised. The interior of the dome was unlike anything they had encountered before. Rows of glowing panels lined the walls, displaying streams of data that pulsed rhythmically. Holographic projections floated in midair, showing images of hybrid creatures in various stages of development. In the center of the room stood a massive console, its surface covered in blinking lights and touch-sensitive controls. "This must be the control center," Laura said, her voice tinged with excitement. She approached the console, her fingers hovering over the controls. "If we can access the system, we might be able to find out exactly what happened here, and why." Before she could begin, however, the lights flickered, bathing the room in eerie shadows. A low-frequency hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The crew froze, their eyes darting around the room as the source of the noise revealed itself. From the darkness emerged a figure unlike any they had seen before. It was massive, towering over them with limbs that seemed both organic and mechanical. Its body shimmered with a metallic sheen, and its eyes glowed with an intense blue light. Unlike the smaller hybrids, this creature radiated intelligence and power. "What is that thing?" Jake whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Ryan replied, raising his weapon. "But I don't think it's friendly." The creature tilted its head, studying them with an unsettling calmness. Then, without warning, it let out a deafening roar that shook the entire room. The sound reverberated through their bodies, leaving their ears ringing and their hearts racing. Laura took a cautious step forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We're not here to hurt you," she said slowly, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "We just want to understand." The creature paused, tilting its head further as if considering her words. For a moment it seemed to relax, but only for a moment. Suddenly it lunged forward, its movements impossibly fast. Ryan fired his weapon instinctively, the shot striking the creature's chest. To their horror, it didn't even flinch. "It's not working," Ryan shouted, backing away. "Fall back," Laura yelled, grabbing Alex's arm and pulling him toward the exit. The others followed, scrambling to escape as the creature advanced relentlessly. Just as they reached the doorway, the lights in the dome surged, blinding them momentarily. When their vision cleared, the creature was gone, vanished into thin air. The hum faded, replaced by an oppressive silence. "What just happened?" Mia asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Laura admitted, clutching her datapad tightly. "But whatever that thing was, it's smarter than we thought, and stronger." Ryan glanced back at the dome, his expression grim. "We need to regroup and come up with a plan. If that thing decides to hunt us down, we won't stand a chance." As they retreated into the jungle, the weight of Earth's gravity bore down on them heavier than ever.